Hello, welcome to the Learn English Lab. Today's podcast, English Listening Practice podcast topic name is Traditional versus Modern Values. We're diving into something that, well, really shapes societies all over the world. It's this intricate dance between traditional ways and modern ideas.
It really is.
And it creates this fascinating mix of, opportunities, but also some pretty complex challenges that's constantly redefining things.
And I think our goal today for you listening isn't really to say one is better than the other.
Right.
It's more about understanding how we can maybe blend the best bits of both. Aiming for a future that feels, harmonious and meaningful, drawing strengths from all sides.
Okay, so let's lay the groundwork. When we talk about traditional values, what are we really talking about? What's the core idea?
Well, fundamentally, they're the beliefs, the customs, the practices that get passed down, often over generations. They're usually rooted pretty deep in cultural norms, sometimes religious beliefs, or just the way a society has always worked. The focus tends to be on continuity, keeping things going. Stability, exactly. And collective well-being, what's good for the group, and a real respect for established systems. And even though they look different everywhere, you find these common threads.
Like what? What are some common themes?
Well, a big one is family and community.
Yeah.
The family unit, often the extended family, is usually the cornerstone.
Right.
Group harmony often comes before what one individual might want. You see this really clearly in, say, South Asian cultures with filial piety kids honoring elders. Or think about multi-generational homes you find in places like rural India. It's very common.
That makes sense. And you mentioned respect for systems. Does that tie into authority?
It does, significantly. Respect for authority is central. Hierarchies are often quite important, whether it's elders, religious figures, community leaders. They're often revered for their wisdom, their experience. Think about tribal chiefs in many African societies, like the Ashanti of Ghana, who mediate disputes. Their word carries weight.
Got it.
Then you have the actual cultural and religious practices, rituals, ceremonies. These aren't just formalities. They actively preserve a group's identity.
Can you give an example?
Sure. The Japanese tea ceremony, it's incredibly meticulous, right? It embodies Zen principles like mindfulness, or indigenous Australian Dreamtime storytelling, which connects people directly to their ancestral past, to their land.
Wow. Okay.
And finally, there are often strong moral and ethical codes, clear guidelines for how to behave. This builds trust, cohesion. Think of the 10 Commandments in Christianity, or Islam's focus on charity, zakat.
So it really paints a picture of traditional values as this kind of anchor, grounding people in heritage, giving purpose, stability.
That's a great way to put it, an anchor.
But I guess the flip side could be, does that very stability sometimes make it harder to adapt or change?
That's the inherent tension, isn't it?
Yeah.
That stability is invaluable, but yes, it can sometimes lead to a resistance to new ideas or different ways of doing things.
Okay, so if tradition is the anchor, then modern values, they feel more like the current, maybe dynamic, reflecting this globalized, tech-driven world we're in now. They seem to prioritize individual action, innovation, being adaptable, often pushing against those older norms. What defines them?
Yeah, modern values definitely push in new directions. Individualism is probably the most prominent feature.
Personal freedom.
Personal freedom, self-expression, the idea that you define your own path. Think about movements like feminism or LGBTQ plus rights. They're all about empowering individuals to shape their own identities. The global push for marriage equality is a really powerful example of that shift towards personal choice.
Right.
Then there's this constant drive for innovation and progress. Our modern world is built on it.
Technology, science.
Exactly. Technological advancements aimed at improving life. mRNA vaccines, electric cars, AI, renewable energy. It's all driven by this belief that change, advancement, is how we make things better.
Pushing boundaries, basically.
Spot on. And linked to that is diversity and inclusion. Actively promoting equality across different identities, race, gender, orientation, ability.
So things like affirmative action.
Affirmative action, global human rights campaigns, Trying to dismantle discriminatory structures. South Africa's post-apartheid constitution is a really strong example of building inclusivity into the foundation of a nation.
Okay.
And finally, inescapable today is global connectivity. The internet, social media, easy travel, it's all fostered this interconnected world. Platforms like, say, X allow ideas to cross borders instantly. It creates a much more cosmopolitan global perspective for many people.
It's undeniable that modern values fuel incredible change and progress, but I do wonder, Does that intense focus on the individual and the constant push for what's new ever come at a cost? Like maybe weakening community ties or leaving people feeling a bit adrift, disconnected?
That's a really insightful point.
Yeah.
Yes, while they drive progress and open doors, that focus on the individual can sometimes lead to feelings of isolation, and the sheer speed of change can make it hard for people to feel grounded, perhaps losing touch with those community bonds tradition offers.
What's really striking is that this whole dynamic, this push and pull between tradition and modernity, it's not actually new, is it? It goes way back.
Yeah.
How did this evolution start?
You're right, it has deep historical roots. If you think about it, traditional values mostly grew out of agrarian society.
Farming community.
Yeah, where survival literally depended on everyone working together, following the established rules. Think ancient Mesopotamia. Communal irrigation systems required immense cooperation. Duty was paramount. Or feudal Europe with its rigid hierarchies, everyone knew their place, and that maintained order.
So the group's survival was everything.
Basically, yes.
Yeah.
The big shift towards what we now call modern values really started picking up steam with the Enlightenment back in the 17th, 18th centuries.
Reason, science.
Exactly. Thinkers like John Locke championed reason, individual rights, challenging the authority of monarchs and the church. That was a huge change.
And then came the Industrial Revolution.
That just accelerated everything dramatically. 18th, 19th centuries, people moved to cities, machines changed work. It broke down a lot of those old rural traditions, weakened extended families, and really fueled individualism.
Right.
And then the 20th century, world wars, decolonization, the rise of mass media, people were suddenly exposed to so many different ideas. And then, of course, the digital age kicked in late in the century, and cultural boundaries just started blurring like never before with instant global communication.
It's amazing to think how that history plays out right now. You could have, say, a young person in Brazil streaming K-pop music on their phone, while also getting ready to take part in traditional carnival celebrations in their town. And maybe they're also active online advocating for climate action.
That's a perfect illustration. All those layers coexisting in one person's life. It really shows how fused these things have become.
Okay, let's dig into the strengths. Even in our super fast modern world, traditional values still offer some real benefits, don't they?
Oh, absolutely. They have enduring strengths. A major one is stability and security.
That anchor idea again.
Exactly. Traditions provide a kind of predictable framework. And that's incredibly comforting, especially when things feel uncertain or chaotic, like during a crisis. Think about religious rituals, Ramadan, Christmas. They offer continuity, bring people together year after year. Or in Japan, the Obon festival honoring ancestors reinforces those family bonds and a sense of shared history.
And what about the wider community?
That's another huge strength. Community cohesion. Traditional values are often fantastic at fostering strong social bonds.
A sense of belonging.
A real sense of belonging. In many African cultures, communal living creates these incredibly tight-knit support systems. You know the Zulu concept of Ubuntu?
I am because we are.
That's the one. It beautifully sums up that emphasis on collective identity, making sure people feel supported, connected. You also get clear moral guidance. Traditional ethical codes offer clarity on right and wrong. Buddhism's Eightfold Path, for instance, promotes ethical conduct. Islam's emphasis on zakat, charity, encourages looking out for others. These guidelines can simplify complex moral questions and build social trust.
Makes sense.
And, of course, cultural preservation. Traditions are how we safeguard heritage. Think of the Maori in New Zealand preserving their language, their haka dance, despite colonial pressures. Or Native American powwows celebrating identity through dance, music, storytelling, keeping ancient traditions alive and vibrant.
It's clear they offer so much in terms of stability and identity, but as we touched on, that strength can also mean rigidity, can it? Like, strict gender roles in some traditional contexts might really limit opportunities, especially for women, clashing directly with modern ideas about equality that must create friction.
It absolutely does. That's often where the sharpest conflicts arise.
Yeah.
The very things that provide strength can also become points of tension or barriers to change.
Okay, let's flip the coin again. What about the advantages of modern values? What unique benefits do they bring to the table? Maybe things that tradition finds harder to deliver?
Modern values definitely offer some unique and powerful advantages. First off, personal empowerment.
Choosing your own path.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Prioritizing individual choice allows people to pursue passions, define their own lives. Think about the rise of women in top leadership roles, people like Angela Merkel or Indra Nooyi. That reflects this shift. Or even the gig economy. offering flexible careers tailored to individual skills and lifestyles.
Right.
Second, and this is huge, innovation and progress. This is where modern values really shine. That constant drive for improvement transforms lives.
Technology again.
Technology, science, medicine. Breakthroughs like CRISPR gene editing, renewable energy like solar panels, the incredibly fast development of COVID-19 vaccines. These are all products of modern values pushing the boundaries of what's possible for human well-being.
We'll focus on improving the human condition then.
Spot on. Third, inclusivity. Modern values actively challenge discrimination and push for equality.
Fighting unfairness.
Yes, movements like Black Lives Matter or global pride events demand justice and fairness. Policies like universal parental leave, like you see in Scandinavia, reflect a deep societal commitment to making sure everyone feels they belong and have equal opportunity.
Okay.
And lastly, adaptability. Modern values encourage being flexible, responding to new opportunities. Big remote work, the digital nomad lifestyle, online learning platforms like Coursera or Upwork, they all show how we can adapt to a rapidly changing world, learn new skills, find new ways to live and work.
It's clear modern values are powerful engines for change. But, coming back to that earlier point, that strong focus on the individual, it can lead to isolation sometimes, maybe weaken those family or community ties. And the constant, relentless change can leave people feeling a bit unmoored, maybe even longing for the stability that tradition provides. It feels like both sides have potential blind spots.
That's a very balanced way to see it. Each system offers something vital, something essential, but neither is perfect. They each present their own set of challenges alongside their strengths.
And this is where it gets really juicy, doesn't it? The clash, where these two sets of values meet head-on. It often sparks conflict, tension, creating some really fascinating dynamics in societies all over the world. Where do we see this friction most clearly?
Oh, it pops up everywhere, often in the most personal areas of life. Take family dynamics, that's a big one.
Marriage, for example?
Exactly. In many traditional cultures, you have arranged marriages designed to prioritize family unity, social status, maybe economic stability. You see this in parts of India, for instance. But modern values stress romantic love, individual choice. So you get this real tension, especially between generations. A young person might feel immense family pressure, but desire to choose their own partner based on love.
I can imagine. What about work?
Workplace culture is another hotspot. Traditional workplaces often value hierarchy, seniority, lifetime loyalty. Think of the classic salaryman culture in Japan.
Right.
But modern workplaces, they tend to prioritize flexibility, skills over tenure, career mobility. Younger generations especially might seek better work-life balance or the freedom of remote work, clashing with those older expectations.
And technology must amplify these clashes, surely.
Oh, massively. Technology and tradition often collide. Social media is a prime example. It challenges traditional ideas about privacy, how you present yourself. In more conservative societies, you might see women using platforms like X to advocate for greater rights, which can lead to significant backlash from those holding traditional views.
Okay.
Then there's education. You have the contrast between traditional methods, maybe rote learning, immense respect for the teacher's authority, like China's intense Gaokao exam system, versus modern education, which tends to prioritize critical thinking, creativity, questioning things. Students often have to navigate both systems, which can be confusing.
Yeah.
And finally, a really sensitive area, gender and identity. Traditional gender roles are often quite fixed, specific expectations for men and women. Modern values champion gender equality, fluidity, the right to define your own identity. So you see clashes like traditional expectations of masculinity in some African cultures bumping up against advocacy for gender-neutral policies. These are deep societal shifts playing out.
It really highlights the challenge, doesn't it? Trying to balance that need for continuity with the drive for change. Lean too hard on tradition, you might stifle progress, but embrace modernity too fiercely and you risk eroding valuable heritage and identity. It's a real tightrope walk.
It really is. And maybe the insight here is that the conflict isn't always just old versus new. Sometimes it's about different ways of trying to meet the same basic human needs, security, belonging, progress.
Yeah.
The tension flares up when the methods seem incompatible.
That's a great point. It makes it less about a battle and more about navigating different paths. Okay, let's make this concrete. It's fascinating to see how different societies are actually doing this navigating. Let's look at some specific global examples or case studies to see tradition and modernity in action. How are different cultures handling this blend?
Great idea. Let's start with Japan's balancing act. Japan is often seen as a masterclass in this.
How so?
Well, they meticulously preserve ancient traditions. Shinto rituals, the tea ceremony, sumo wrestling alongside being a global leader in cutting-edge technology. Think Sony, Toyota.
Right.
There's even a cultural concept, teipmei, public face, versus hana, true feelings, which reflects navigating social harmony and individual expression. Walk through Tokyo, you see the hypermodern Shibuya crossing right near the serene ancient Meiji shrine, or the traditional Hanami cherry blossom viewing parties happening while bullet trains zip by. It's a constant coexistence.
Fascinating. What about indigenous communities? They face unique pressures.
Indeed. Consider indigenous communities in Canada like the Cree or the Haida. They face immense challenges preserving traditional values, storytelling, land stewardship amidst modern Canadian society.
But they are adapting.
Yes, powerfully. Younger generations are using modern tools like social media to advocate for Indigenous rights, language revitalization, and cultural continuity. Canada's Truth and Reconciliation Commission itself is a modern framework trying to address historical injustices while respecting traditional values of healing and community. You even see traditional Haida art, like totem poles, gaining global recognition through modern art platforms, bridging worlds.
That's a really hopeful example of fusion.
Moving across the globe, think about urbanization in Nigeria. Cities like Lagos are exploding with growth, showcasing this traditional modern split vividly.
How does it manifest there?
You have young professionals embracing very modern lifestyles, working in tech, finance, global industries. Yet they often maintain strong connections to traditional practices, like Yoruba naming ceremonies or elaborate Igbo masquerade festivals when they visit their home villages.
So a dual existence.
Very much so. And this duality often sparks debate, especially around things like gender roles. Women pursuing modern careers in Lagos might still face traditional expectations back home, creating complex negotiations in their lives.
And India, such a huge, diverse country, must be a real crossroads.
India's cultural crossroads is incredibly complex and dynamic. You have rural areas where caste traditions and joint family systems remain very influential.
Right.
Contrast that with booming urban centers like Bangalore, hubs of tech and modernity. Young Indians are often navigating both worlds, maybe balancing family expectations around arranged marriage, while also using modern dating apps. They participate enthusiastically in ancient festivals like Diwali. They're also deeply engaged with global music, fashion, and media. Bollywood cinema itself is a perfect example of this fusion traditional epic stories told with dazzling modern production values.
That blend seems key. And finally, a place that's almost synonymous with rapid modernization.
Right, the UAE's global ambition. The United Arab Emirates, especially Dubai, consciously blends the two. You have the almost futuristic skyline with the Burj Khalifa, coexisting with traditional souks, the bustling old markets, and deeply embedded Islamic practices, like observing Ramadan. You'll see Emiratis wearing traditional dress, the abaya or kandura, while fully embracing the latest global fashion trends and technology. Their national strategy, like Vision 2021, explicitly aimed to integrate traditional Emirati values like hospitality with modern goals like sustainability and becoming a global innovation hub. Projects like Masdar City, designed as a sustainable eco-city, embody this planned fusion.
It really seems the societies that manage to thrive are those finding ways to weave these threads together rather than letting one dominate. So, how is this balance actually achieved on the ground? What does it look like?
It happens in many ways, often quite organically, sometimes by design. We see a lot of cultural fusion. Think of Singapore again.
The hawker centers.
Exactly. Those traditional food centers are beloved national institutions sitting right alongside gleaming skyscrapers. They celebrate traditional festivals like Chinese New Year with ancient rituals, but the nation is also a hypermodern global finance hub. It's integrated.
What about in education?
Education is another key area. Many modern systems are finding ways to incorporate traditional values. Finland, known for its modern creative approach,
Right, very progressive.
still fosters deep respect for teachers, which is a more traditional value. In India, the prestigious IITs, Indian Institutes of Technology, combine incredibly rigorous, modern technical training with instilling cultural values like discipline and community responsibility in their students.
Interesting. And does this apply to bigger challenges like environmental issues?
Absolutely. Sustainable progress often involves blending old and new. Many environmental movements draw inspiration from traditional concepts of stewardship, of living in balance with nature.
Like indigenous knowledge.
Precisely. Indigenous communities in the Amazon, for example, are combining generations of ecological knowledge with modern conservation science and technology to protect the rainforest. The whole global push for sustainability in a way, blends a traditional respect for the natural world with modern innovation needed to solve the crisis. And maybe most importantly, it happens through intergenerational dialogue. Families and communities that talk openly, bridging the gap between younger generations embracing change and older generations holding on to tradition. Think of Mexico. Younger people might live very modern lives, but still participate wholeheartedly in Dia de los Muertos, honoring ancestors. It shows traditions aren't static. They can evolve and find new meaning.
It really underscores that finding this balance isn't easy. It takes real effort, compromise, empathy, respecting where you came from while still looking forward, not letting either side completely take over. Now, technology, we've touched on it, but let's focus specifically on its role. It feels like such a powerful catalyst in this whole traditional modern dynamic, but maybe in complicated ways.
It's definitely a double-edged sword, a huge catalyst, as you say. On one hand, technology massively accelerates modern values.
How so?
By connecting people instantly across cultures, spreading ideas, enabling innovation at lightning speed. Think about activists using social media like Women in Iran, using platforms like X to organize, advocate for rights, and reach a global audience almost overnight. That reflects modern values of free expression and equality, amplified by tech.
Right, but I've also heard the argument that tech can help preserve tradition. That seems counterintuitive. How does that work?
It's a really crucial point, actually. Technology is becoming a vital tool for preserving tradition. Think about digital archives. They're being used to save endangered languages, like the Cherokee syllabary, documenting them, creating learning tools, giving them a future. Or virtual reality. We can now recreate historical sites like Machu Picchu with incredible detail, making heritage accessible to people who could never visit physically. And online platforms allow diaspora communities, people living far from their homeland, to maintain cultural connections. Imagine virtual Diwali celebrations connecting Indian families scattered across the globe. It keeps traditions alive across distance.
So it's not just about the new, it can reinforce the old too.
Exactly. But there's the other edge of the sword. Technology can also significantly disrupt traditions.
Oh.
When modern media and ideas flood into previously isolated communities via the internet or satellite TV, they can rapidly challenge local customs, beliefs, ways of life. Sometimes this leads to cultural erosion, where traditional practices fade away. A classic example often cited is Bhutan. When they introduced television relatively late, in 1999, it sparked huge debates about the impact of Western shows and values on their deeply ingrained Buddhist culture and traditions. It shows how disruptive that influx can be.
It really makes you think, doesn't it? How do we harness all the incredible benefits of technology without letting it overwhelm or erase valuable cultural norms and traditions? It's a huge question for nearly every society today. And it's vital to remember this isn't a one-size-fits-all situation. The way this traditional modern dynamic plays out varies massively depending on the culture, the history, the specific context. We can't just paint it with one brush.
That's absolutely critical. Take collectivist societies, places like China or India. Traditional values, especially around family loyalty and community harmony, often remain incredibly strong, even amidst rapid modernization.
So they coexist.
They often coexist in complex ways. Young people in China might deeply respect Confucian principles of filial piety while also working in hypermodern tech hubs like Shenzhen. In India, as we mentioned, arranged marriages persist alongside the use of modern dating apps. It's not necessarily either.
Okay, and then the contrast.
Contrast that with primarily individualist societies like the US or many Western European nations. Here, modern values, individual freedom, self-expression tend to be dominant. But even here you see interesting trends. There's a growing interest in rediscovering traditions or finding meaning in practices rooted in them.
Like mindfulness.
Mindfulness is a perfect example. It's rooted in ancient Buddhist traditions, but has exploded in popularity in the West as a way to cope with the stresses of modern individualistic life. It shows a search for something perhaps missing. And then you have post-colonial societies across much of Africa, Latin America, parts of Asia. The legacy of colonialism adds another layer of complexity.
Oh, so?
Well, colonial powers often impose their own modern values while suppressing traditional ones. So, after independence, there's often a complex process of reclaiming traditional identity while also engaging with the modern globalized world. South Africa's efforts to promote modern inclusivity while also recognizing traditional tribal leadership systems is one example. Or in Brazil, Afro-Brazilian religions like Candomblé blend African spiritual traditions with elements absorbed over centuries, creating vibrant, unique hybrid cultural forms that are both traditional and modern.
it really shows the diversity of experiences.
And what's fascinating now with globalization is this constant cross-pollination. Yoga from India is global. Democratic ideals spread and reshape traditional hierarchies. It's a constant exchange, influencing both sides.
So looking ahead, where does this leave us? How will this interplay continue to shape our world, especially with huge challenges on the horizon?
Well, it's clear this dynamic isn't going away. If anything, it might intensify. Big challenges like climate change, the rise of AI, massive demographic shifts, these will demand incredible adaptability, leaning into modern values of innovation and flexibility.
But tradition doesn't just vanish.
Not at all. Because at the same time, in a world that feels increasingly complex and uncertain, that fundamental human need for identity, for belonging, for meaning that often draws us back to tradition, to our roots. So the core tension remains.
What about the younger generations, Gen Z, Gen Alpha? They're growing up completely immersed in this digital, globalized world. How might they navigate this differently?
That's a key question. They are unique. Raised digitally, yes, but many also express a deep craving for authenticity, for purpose, for connection, things often associated with tradition.
So they might blend them more naturally.
Potentially, yes. We see them blending traditional practices, maybe prioritizing sustainable living, community gardening, things rooted in older ways of life with very modern tools, like using social media for activism. Think about movements like #FridaysForFuture. It combines collective, community-based action, which feels quite traditional, with sophisticated global networking and communication, which is purely modern.
So what kind of future trends might we see emerging from this?
We could see more deliberate hybrid cultures. Think about planned projects like Saudi Arabia's Neom City. The vision, at least, is to integrate traditional architectural wisdom, respect for the desert environment, with absolutely cutting-edge sustainable technology.
Interesting.
We'll likely see ongoing cultural revival, too.
Yeah.
Indigenous movements worldwide are using modern platforms, websites, apps, social media to teach languages, share stories, preserve traditions, ensuring they don't just survive, but thrive in the digital age, like Aboriginal language revitalization efforts in Australia.
Using the new to save the old.
Precisely. And perhaps, optimistically, we might see the slow emergence of a more global ethics. Not erasing cultural differences, but finding common ground, a shared framework that blends timeless traditional virtues like compassion, wisdom, and community care, with modern principles like human rights, inclusivity, and scientific reason. A way to navigate global challenges together. Ultimately, I think the real task, the ongoing challenge for all of us, individuals and societies, is to consciously create a future that genuinely honors the wisdom of the past while also enthusiastically embracing the potential of innovation, to build a world that feels both deeply rooted and dynamically forward-looking.
What a fascinating exploration. I think if there's one core message to take away from this deep dive, it's that this really isn't about choosing sides, is it? Tradition or modernity?
Not at all.
Maybe the real insight is that harmony isn't just about finding a middle ground, but about actively using the strengths of both, anchoring our growth, our progress in the wisdom and stability of tradition, while infusing those traditions with the energy, the adaptability, the inclusivity that modernity offers.
Well said. Tradition gives us that stability, that community, that sense of who we are. Modernity drives the innovation, the progress, the ability to adapt and include everyone.
And you, listening, you as an individual and we as societies, we actually have the agency, the power to consciously shape that balance, to decide how we blend the best of both worlds in our own lives and communities.
That's the empowering part. It's an ongoing process, and we all play a role.
So the question to ponder is, as individuals and as part of society, how can you weave tradition and modernity together into your own unique, vibrant tapestry? We really hope this deep dive has given you some fresh perspectives to think about.
We hope so too.
And if it has, please remember to like this video, share it with others who might find it interesting, and subscribe to the Learn English Lab YouTube channel for more deep dives like this one.